Good. Yeah. Just finishing up another big article today on a list of all of Trump's promises that he made that for this, on video, by the way, which, by the way, as I was doing this, I was going back. I watched he put out his whole policy agenda on video clips way back in 2023 and early 2024, like 50 video clips. The press paid no attention to this. I wrote a big article about it back then. Press ignored it. Harris campaign ignored all that stuff. Biden ignored it. And instead, they come up with this, and there's so much craziness on there. I mean, wait till you see, there's 85 promises. Wait till you see some of the things that he promised on video on this list. But instead, someone with the Harris campaign, I have no idea who, decided rather than mine those for nuggets in there, we are going to focus on Project 2025, which was this dumbest idea ever, which is we're going to take this third-party group, Heritage, that has some, personnel connections to Trump world, and we're going to take their 900-page wish list for the next administration, and we're going to try and argue that this is Trump's agenda. And they spent all this time pulling things out of this Project 2025 thing, right. And Trump is just kicking back going, that's not me. Like, none of that stuff's me. I didn't say any of that stuff.
You are so right. It's once in a while, yeah.
What are we doing? You
are so right, Ron. And it's interesting you're writing this article about all of his promises, because I said on the air yesterday, in fact, one of the first things I said, besides I accept the outcome of a free and fair election, even though I'm disappointed, was let's hold his feet to the fire and let's talk about all the promises. For example, 24 hours, the war in the Ukraine is going to be over with, right? Credit cards at 10%. He promised tax cut breaks for everybody, right? No taxes on Social Security. I mean, the list goes on and on. 15 million deportations. Right.
Car loans tax deductible.
Right. 15 million. And you're working on this article now. We can go on and on. 15 million deportations. So I guess, what does that mean? On January 21st, we're expected that the war in the Ukraine is going to be over. I mean, he put his foot in his mouth as he always does, and we have to hold him to account now. If there's, that's what we need to do. And I'm so glad you're putting this article out there, because it's important.
I got him on video saying, like, the concept of being a naturalized citizen, you're born on U.S. soil, has been the case since 1789. Okay. Trump says that he is going to, by executive order, revoke the concept of what he said is that people who are born on U.S. soil to migrant parents will no longer be considered U.S. citizens. That has been the case since 1789. As long as you're born on U.S. soil, you are considered a naturalized citizen.
Right.
There's something like, 15 million people that are U.S. citizens. They're actual U.S. citizens that are kids right now, who he has said he's going to revoke their citizenship by executive order and deport them. That they're in like 7th grade right now in U.S. schools. Now, that's him saying it on video. The Harris campaign never brought that up. And the biggest voting bloc that flipped from 2020 from Biden to Trump was Latinos. Now, you think if you told those voters that, like, your neighbor next door who's 12 years old is going to be deported, that wouldn't matter to them?
So you're so right. And every campaign event that I went to with Harris, she would always mention Project 2025, but no mention of some of the stuff that you're talking about. So I think that was a huge strategic mistake. I think there were a lot of mistakes made, but based on the article that you wrote, I want to talk to you a little bit about that. You guys can check it out on Midas Touch. Ron put out this article. Let's start with Joe Biden, because that's the first thing that you spoke about. I had Joe Walsh on yesterday, and he blamed Joe Biden 95% of the reason why she lost. I wouldn't go that far, but Biden did say, and tell me if I'm wrong, that for the most part, he would be a one-term president, right? And he would kind of leave the gavel for a younger group of Democrats. And I think you can put a lot of names in there, waited way too long for Biden to step aside. And Harris was behind the 8 ball, and she didn't have enough time to campaign. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think I think pretty much all of us at Midas feel that way, except Ben. Ben thinks, Biden should have definitely stayed in. But the rest of us feel like, look, when I left the Republican Party in 2020 and switched parties and decided to support Biden, and people said to me, Republicans said to me, like, he's too old. He's never going to be able to do 8 years. And I would laugh at them. I'd say, what are you talking about 8 years? He's not going to do 8 years.
Right.
He's going to do 4 and be gone. Like he understands that he's coming out of retirement to beat Trump. And then he's going to hand it over to a new generation, to a Gavin Newsom, to whoever wins the primary. Right.
Yep.
But by doing it this way, not only did it not give Harris enough time to get her feet under her and get out there and create her own identity. She had 3.5 months, but we didn't have a primary. So we didn't let the voters choose who was the best candidate was. And I think that had an impact, plus all the media publicity and everything else that comes with a primary. We didn't get any of that. And so instead we have them hiding Biden for months and then hiding Harris for a month. And then Harris finally comes out and gives her first interview. And the first question is, what are you going to do differently than Joe Biden? And she doesn't have an answer. Yeah. It's like, what are we doing here?
Yeah. I just talked about that with Don Lemon when she was on The View and she was asked, what would you do differently? And she said, well, I can't really think of anything. Not a good answer. And again, I think Harris, probably overperformed. Thought the debate she did a really good job. And I thought she did probably as good a job as I think some of the people around her maybe made quite a few mistakes. But the second thing that you bring up in this article, which is important, is the pandemic and inflation. And I just feel like this is where so many people who voted for Trump, maybe not all, but a lot, are very uneducated and ill-informed on this issue, and they don't understand how inflation works.
Because the Biden administration didn't level with America in 2021. He did on mandates. He said, look, we're going to have vaccine. I didn't agree with mandates, by the way. But he said, we're going to have vaccine mandates. You're going to get kicked out of the military. If you don't take the vax, you're going to get kicked out of government service. You can't work for a government contractor. All these mandates went into effect to deal with COVID, but he leveled with the American people. I mean, he told them right up front, you're not going to like some of this stuff, but this is what we need to do. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, the administration never leveled with the American public about the other impacts of the pandemic that were occurring all over the globe. The supply chain issues, the issues on getting medication, the issues on getting gas prices, you name it, across the board. They didn't go out and say, look, gas prices are going to go up in a few months, and this is why. Get on TV, explain it to the American people. This is what's going to happen. It's happening all over the world. Here's the reasons why it's eventually going to come down. This is our plan to deal with it. But instead, they just ignored all of that stuff. And meanwhile, Trump is out there screaming, Bidenflation. This is all because of Biden. Biden is causing this. And there was nothing from the other side to counteract what was being said by Fox News, Newsmax, all the Republican politicians. It's just sort of like but that's also why I didn't want Biden to run. I mean, I knew that before he took office. Mm-hmm. I said that people at the time, I said, he's going to have to clean up a huge mess. Yes. And there's going to be a lot of pain with what he has to do to clean up this mess from Trump. And no matter how much he tries to explain it, he's going to get blamed for that pain. He's going to, and I felt like he was almost like a sacrificial lamb where it was perfect. He's coming out of retirement. He's going to do one term. He's going to take all the flack and people are going to blame him for everything. But then somebody else new could come in behind him and say, well, look, that wasn't me.
Right.
And it was just so teed up for that to happen. And then Biden decided he didn't want to leave,
Bad decision. I disagree with Ben. I think if Joe Biden ran and Harris sat it out. I mean, we could all have opinions on this. I think he arguably would have done worse. He had a 40% approval rating. Nobody with a 40% approval rating has ever won a presidency. So, yeah.
How do you do it?
Yeah.
60% of Americans say you're doing a bad job.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, I love Ben, but I respectfully disagree with him on that one. Let's talk a little bit about the Afghan withdrawal. If you're just joining us, Ron Filipkowski from Midas Touch, great article out on Midas Touch on some of the reasoning of why Ron thinks that Harris lost. Let's talk about the Afghan withdrawal. You wrote about this. This one drives me nuts because John Bolton says it all the time that Donald Trump's withdrawal was almost virtually identical. Oh, yeah, he also did a deal with the Taliban, and if he wasn't inviting them to Camp David, he helped release 5,000 Taliban terrorists, but the Republicans don't want to talk about that. And listen, the Afghan withdrawal was terrible, right? There were a lot of mistakes that were made, the Biden administration and the Trump administration, but everybody on the right wants to blame Joe Biden when the withdrawal was virtually identical, right, Ron?
Yeah, because there was this. Look, one of the things that Trump is very good at, you have to give him credit for certain things, is he's very good at like finding problems that are happening, bad things that are happening, and figuring out how to exploit them. And if that means just straight out lying, he's perfectly happy to do that. But he's very good at that. So, and what you have to do is you have to just